Hello, and welcome to the 2017 Mini Roasta event in Minneapolis, Minnesota at Mill City Roasters. We are coming to you live currently. If you're watching this after, we're no longer live. My name is Joe Morocco.
I'm Ian Pico.
Rob Host.
I'm Dirk De La Paz.
And we are here for the Focus on the Roast section of the Mini Roasta event. Focus on the Roast is an annual competition that Mill City Roasters has been hosting for, I think, is this our third year in a row?
Third annual
Focus on the Roast. And we do it a little differently each time. This event today, you have submitted some coffees to us. You all in the live audience have possibly submitted some coffees to us. And we're going to judge them sight unseen and talk about the roast. We don't have a score sheet. We're simply going to focus in on areas that we think that roast could go in different directions to highlight different nuance in the coffee. We want you to be clear in understanding that we're using the water that we have. We're using the tools that we have to brew. These are going to be brewed on the Technivorm. And we are going to just be tasting and talking about what we taste. And so you're not going to get an in score. Hopefully what you're going to get out of this is some education about how the coffees have been roasted and why we are getting sight unseen the flavors that we're getting in the cup. And hopefully that applies to your roasting ability.
I think it's also good to point out that we will be using an objective sensory lexicon to describe the flavors and textures and aromas that we are evaluating in the roasts. So some of these descriptors can sound like things that you probably wouldn't want to face to your customer on the description of your product. And they may sound slightly negative in context, but please know that we're not trying to be negative on the coffee, though if there are negative objective aspects, we will note them. But we are going to be using words that we find on the flavor wheel and in the WCR lexicon to be as objective and clearly communicate our evaluation as possible.
And if we find something negative in your coffee, please don't be offended. It's not simply that it's bad, it's that it's present, and it could be the case that you want it to be there, it could be the case that you don't want it to be there. We're not saying that what you've done is wrong or right, we're saying that what you've done has created this expression in the coffee for us today on this water in this setting. Also, to make things a little bit more interesting this year, we have a panel of folks that are going to be describing to you the coffees, how the coffees were roasted, whatever was submitted by those who submitted the coffees to be read. Can we pan over to our panelists? So we're going to do this golf pro style. Go ahead, you may introduce yourselves.
I'm Nick Green, Mill City Roasters, and with me is
Eliza Bonnet. Good to be here.
And there you have it.
All right, we're going to be starting off with a coffee from $10 Coffee Roasters.
Hope we're pronouncing that correctly.
I do too.
Names on this list that we may butcher,
I'm sorry.
which case, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about this. It looks like we've got a Costa Rican natural. Not too much about this coffee that we've been presented with. We'll learn a little bit more about what they taste in it. For now, I don't want to speak too loudly about what cupping notes we've been provided, but we will be able to compare and contrast after the fact. Big thing is to avoid confirmation bias. If you get a cup that somebody says, ooh, this is vanilla-y, well, if you taste vanilla, you may be lying. So, thoughts?
Yeah, that's suggestive. Ooh, you're going to taste vanilla.
Exactly.
It definitely sometimes will bring out those.
Though, I don't see any cupping notes that are overly ambitious, I'll
True.
say.
This is very yeah, they're pretty classic.
Yeah.
Classic cupping notes. Wow, what a wonderful slurp that was. I'm guessing that was our wonderful friend over there, Derek De La Paz. No way. Who was that? Was that Rob? I haven't heard his before. That was so exciting.
Not at all.
And let's be real.
Rob.
This is why we're here.
I think that now from over here, we aren't evaluating the coffees, but there are things that we can evaluate. For instance, the loudness and timbres of the different slurps.
That's a very good one.
So far, in my mind,
Ooh.
Rob is in the lead,
I agree.
with Derek right behind him.
I'm not sure what that was on Joe's last.
Yeah.
Still warming up the engine.
Joe, I know you're more impressive than that. Come on.
Joe, it's.
I'm a gentle cover.
He's not.
Disengaged.
Ooh.
Yeah. That was tough, dude.
Wow, that
Out of
it
my
sounds
game.
like a
Out of my
cyclone. Truly, that's amazing. May I record that later, Rob?
Can that be our ringtone?
I want it to be the alarm, or not the alarm.
Yeah, wake up in the morning.
An alert for a text message. Right?
I mean, it's work appropriate if you work here, so
So good.
that was unbelievable.
A flavor wheel.
It's like a bird, we heard from the audience. Fantastic.
Wow, so much concentration over there. You've clearly given these folks a lot to think about in this cup. That's kind of the fun part about a natural, though. They often have just so much going on.
And not to interrupt, am I noticing that everyone over there is spitting?
Yes. So often in cupping, you'll spit because caffeine, oddly enough, is actually poison. And the more you drink it, the more bitter the flavors will become as you keep cupping. So
does that
they're
mean
most likely spitting so that they don't have that effect. And so the people who get evaluated last don't have to deal
That's a
with
great
that.
point, yeah. So cupping all day can be
Oh, yeah.
detrimental.
Yeah, as long as you're swallowing. If you're spitting it out, you can cup all day long, no problem.
I'm hearing a distinct lack of slurps, though I'm worried we're about to, there it is, get another one.
See, Derek's, his is very impressive too.
Serena bringing in the SCA flavor wheel for better representation and closer approximation of each flavor in the cup.
Wonderful reference point.
Wonderful reference point. Anecdotally, going off of what you've tasted in the past in your favorite foods is a great way to associate and start to enjoy the cupping process. Relative data points in coffee are a majority of the data we get, though. And so having a set point to base against is fairly important. Yeah.
The beauty of it, it's all totally subjective. I love that.
Well, our customers will often joke, Mill City gives relative answers, and I'll say they were relative questions. So, Rob, who's analyzing? Are those whole bean or ground?
Whole bean.
We've been provided with whole bean coffee with the ground coffee so that we can review it. And then we've also been provided with brewed coffee that is not brewed in a cupping style, but brewed through the Techniform, because this is most likely closer to what a customer would receive or how a customer would be interacting with your coffees at the end of the day. So we're evaluating it through that method.
And it allows us to taste the coffees quicker because you got to wait about
Bingo.
11 minutes after you start pouring the water in a cupping bowl before you can actually start cupping. So we'd just be awkwardly standing in front of you for 11 minutes. Which is
May or may
fine.
not be good.
Good?
Yep.
Ready with the
Yeah.
evaluation.
Stepping up front.
We'll go to the front end. Okay.
Alrighty, I guess we'll hand it back over to the tasting panel to give us their evaluation.
So I think the way we should do this is maybe just read off the list of descriptions that we have, and then after we read off the descriptions, kind of talk about what our assumptions are for how some of these descriptors came into being. So I'll go ahead and start. This had a bitterness like really nice cocoa, strawberry, in particular cooked strawberry, honey, clove and nutmeg, cinnamon, so baking spices, a lot of apple, in particular cooked apple. I got a lot of herbal characteristic as the coffee began to cool. And it had a really nice soft body as the coffee was in my mouth, but it finished it a little bit more on the dry side.
Yeah, I would add to that I was mostly living in the brown realm here with brown spices and caramels, touching some of the fruit, but some of the more of the dried fruit like raisin and prune. Caramel. There was some floralness in the nose. I felt the finish was finishing a bit toast-like and texture a little drying on the finish with a mild acidity, sort of not very three-dimensional, kind of a unidimensional acidity, mild but present, and a body that was overall smooth. Wasn't as full as maybe I would expect from a natural, but a little lacking there, and just slightly a dry finish.
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit of earthy and nutty characteristics on the nose, light fruity characteristics as well. And the taste, pie spices, sweet bay leaf as well. A touch of a juicy characteristic that was similar to banana and amaretto at various times. But it was a savory. I thought the body was pretty good. Didn't get too much chalkiness. It's a little bit drying, but for natural, it wasn't anything abnormal. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very similar. So I got kind of in the aromas and fragrance, I got kind of a chocolate, more on the dark chocolate side, a little bit of brown sugar. Also started to pick up some cocoa notes, I want to say. There was a slight butteriness, milky quality to the body, but I thought the body was overall a little bit thinner than I would expect from a natural coffee. There was definitely like a kind of overall kind of drying note that I picked up that was slightly astringent that I kind of felt like was like toasted walnut. So not completely negative in a way, like it kind of added balance to the cup, but I would have thought the cup would have been a little bit sweeter. But it also kind of paired up with the cocoa taste, I want to say, kind of a drying note. There was like a cocoa. I definitely felt like the cup was leaning more towards the brown notes. It was a little bit more like nuts and chocolate, a little less of the fruit. The fruit I think was kind of tempered. There was a little slight, I thought, red fruit note that kind of went more into like dried fruit, kind of like maybe a golden raisin or like a prune or something like that. The body development, I feel like it could have been a little bit more body and maybe a touch more sweetness. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, whenever I'm evaluating a roast sight unseen, I kind of try to get into the psychology of the person that roasted the coffee. And what I'm thinking here is most likely this is a very nice natural coffee that they're trying to present to a pretty diverse crowd that may be struck negatively by an abrasive natural. Yeah. So this has been roasted, I would say, probably nice and evenly for a little bit longer, slower amount of time, probably a longer, slower development. That would be my assumption.
That would be my assumption too. Yeah, I noted medium color. I would guess that this would probably have been dropped at the end of first crack, somewhere in the midway point between first and second. I thought in that, building off of what might have been the intent of the roaster here, is maybe taming some of that natural wildness of the acetic acid and lactic type acids and the fruity that might be off-putting to an unknowing coffee drinker, but definitely origin comes through. I would totally pin the origin on this. It expresses its origin, but it's balanced out with more of the brown and the roast notes.
It was a very nice balanced medium roast. The only notes I wrote down was if the person roasting this was trying to bring out more fruit, it might be shortening the development time a little bit and lowering the end temperature a little bit. But if the goal was to produce a really nice balanced coffee, then I think it was pretty well achieved in terms.
Yeah, I think
could do a little longer before first, maybe to get a little bit more body out of it.
Yeah, I'd say to bring up that body, it could be a little longer in the Maillard, lower terminal temp would bring out a little more acid, as well as that fruit character that might express the origin and with more clarity.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, for sure, all that stuff. I thought maybe you could overall, like, shorten the roast overall a little bit, maybe hit it, like, bring up the rate of rise a little quicker in the beginning, and, like, maybe develop it a little longer through first crack and try and develop some of the sweetness. I think it could have had a little bit more sweetness if you wanted to go that route, and you could there's definitely more fruit to play with if you want to, like, bring out a little more fruit and create a little bit less balanced cup. I thought it was nice balance, really appealing to probably a lot of people, but if you wanted to make it a little bit more of, like, a exciting rockstar cup, you could definitely, like, lighten it up a little bit, shorten it up a little bit, and probably get a little more liveliness out of it.
Or even to call it edgy.
Edgy,
right. It's like something to evoke people into responding to something.
Right.
Strongly.
Like, is this coffee? Yeah, that's coffee.
Yeah, I'll finish this discussion just simply by giving an application advice. I feel like this is a great everyman approach to a natural cup of coffee. And I feel like if somebody added cream and sugar, it would actually highlight some things in a really interesting way. And I feel like if this was used as espresso, it would be delicious.
Yeah,
It would be really great.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh well, they switched out without us even noticing.
Yeah, they're good that way, huh?
Fast.
Called, though he may have,
Have a ground sample.
might not be his first time cupping coffee. Just a quick question out to the audience: is Tandala in the audience with us today? We had some coffee sent in. Don't see any hands raised. Perfect. Easy peasy. We're going to be moving on. I know this gentleman is in the audience with us. Meta Coffee Lab out of Lincoln, Nebraska. Fantastic. What are you roasting on back there, sir? North 2 Kilo. We won't even pitch it. Perfect. We'll let them get through cupping just a little bit before we start talking about it. Actually, I'm interested to see if they can place
Where it's from.
processing
what the process-
method.
Yeah, for sure.
On that last
Definitely.
coffee, we saw a lot of very small Venn diagram of cupping notes provided.
Yeah, no.
Hats
what
off.
was given on that last coffee on the bag were the notes cherry, chocolate, and balanced acidity. So, those notes were, for the most part,
I heard them.
roughly, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
My cupping
Good
notes
stuff.
pretty much look like coffee.
Yeah, brown.
Brown tastes good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Brown water.
As we keep slurping away here, I wanted to ask you quick, do you have a favorite coffee to cup? Do you have a favorite coffee that you jump on the bandwagon for?
I
A
wish.
generalist?
I wish I could say yes. Years ago, I decided that I wasn't going to evaluate coffees on whether I like them or not anymore.
Ooh.
And that at first was really hard, and then I got to a place where I rarely evaluate coffee on whether I like it
Sure.
or not.
It's a great way to limit what you are willing to even accept as good.
Oh yeah, definitely. I like great coffee that's well prepared. If the bean is well prepared, I feel that I can be fairly objective.
Well, and you're a roaster as well as a barista, so that gives us some very special insight into.
Indeed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, from that side of things, how much do you prepare one for the other?
In what capacity?
So when you're going to your roaster with a bean, are you looking at that from an extraction point of view right off the bat? Are you looking at that from a how can I do best?
No, I tend to actually do that backwards. So I think about the extraction and how that's going to work. Thank you. Sort of after it's roasted.
Sure.
When evaluating that roast myself, evaluating how that coffee took heat, and how well I did on the roast.
Sure.
I tend to evaluate that just in the cup, and then once the cupping process is done, I start brewing it on all of the different machines
Everything
I
you
have
can
at
find.
my fingertips.
Sure.
And, that's always a good time.
And we're back.
They're ready.
Quick one.
Going.
Coffee number 2.
Numero dos.
Thank you.
So my cupping notes on this are, this coffee, first off, we got to evaluate it, but visually, it looked like a very light roast. The beans themselves were very small, and they were very wrinkly, and a lot of mottled color on each bean, so I feel like this was what I would call around the city range. Due to that, I got some saltiness, some maltiness, cucumber. It was very dry, a lot of citric acidity, pea pod. It got more tart as it cooled, opened up a little bit. Some floral characteristic began to come out, floral in particular like chamomile, so more of an herbal style floral. Some lime. I abandoned my spoon and I picked up the bowl and tasted it in a larger gulp, and that kind of cleaned up that dry mouth and opened up a lot more floral and texture to the coffee. So I think if somebody were drinking this coffee from a cup and not a cupping spoon, it would improve it a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, also noted very light on the development, perhaps a shorter roast. It was very malic in acidity in the beginning, which gave flavors of green apple, but then finished more citric and lemon, which then went into a more green astringency on the finish that kind of gave me a furry teeth, tongue sticking to my mouth.
Right.
Which for me was a negative on the cup, but I do agree. When I was looking at his notes, I did pick up the cup, and that seemed to be a difference from aspirating to just slurping. That dryness decreased, but kind of a walnut, graham cracker, honey profile.
Acidity, medium plus for me. It's pretty decent acidity. I did get some malty and grainy characteristics with graham cracker, along with the slight garden pea sort of characteristic, which for this water might be just a little bit either short on development or a little light in color. Really nice tea-like body, juicy, fruity with some savory herbs, providing a little bit of complexity in the background. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it had some kind of like coffee pulp notes in the beginning. Like I thought it was quite light roasted, so it was kind of coffee pulpy. There was kind of like a note of the processing, I want to say. I kind of almost got like a red fruit, but more like a cranberry kind of thing going on in the front. So that's where I really picked up on the tartness and the like malic kind of green apple note. I like it had a really tart start, but then as you held it in your mouth, and I think that's the bigger drink, it actually kind of felt juicy holding it in my mouth. But then when I let it out, then it kind of got drying, and there was like a drying astringency to that. And I kind of thought of it as like tart cherry almost at that point. Slightly chewy finish. I kind of didn't know if I liked it. I don't think I liked it. It just kind of lingered and hung out a little bit, but it was a little bit soury, I want to say. More acid forward, I want to say, than sweetness forward. But it had a nice acidity. You know, I mean, I thought it had some juicy notes. The body was good for how light it was. It had a really lingering finish. Could be good, could be not good, depending how you like it. But then there was also some notes of like cocoa and kind of figginess in the background too.
Yep.
Any guesses about origin or processing method?
Washed Ethiopia Yirgacheffe or off Yirgacheffe, maybe Guji.
Wash Katura.
Anything else? Anybody else?
I could see it pegged for a Wash Central too, depending.
Yeah,
like
I was a Wash Central. That was my initial.
All right, we'll get back to you guys later. We have a yellow honey Costa Rican.
Really?
I was between El Sal and Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I would say this is one though where if it was on more mineralized water, I think that the underdeveloped that we were tasting maybe wasn't there at all.
Yeah,
Sure.
it could have
So
been.
this is one that was like on that edge.
It was flirting with that. I think
you're
this
right.
is a super nice coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, intrinsically very nice. It's got a lot of great flavors in there and aromas and textures. The only texture I did not enjoy was the dryness of the mouth in the aftertaste that was lingering.
Right.
And I think that could probably be fixed by a lengthening of the Maillard or overall time. You could still, I think, keep it probably at this color or the lightness and get all of that great acidity and juiciness and floral and fruit.
Nuance.
But it could benefit from perhaps a little longer development either in Maillard or post-crack.
Yeah.
Well, on the bag, we had the notes berry, green grape, and syrupy. And kind of based off of all of your assessments, those kind of line up.
Yeah, I think flavor-wise, that's a good description.
You guys are assessing your own coffees pretty well, which is pretty rad.
I gotta say, I'm having trouble finding fuzzy teeth on the
Fuzzy
wheel.
teeth, yeah. Oh, yeah, good.
Sounds great.
I didn't hear it. I just heard fuzzy.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah?
fuzzy?
I know that feeling.
They're often
But it made sense in my brain. It
too
made
off.
sense in my brain because I was
It's,
thinking the same thing.
Terrible pandemic
well-
sweeping the nation.
It's also, I think, maybe the pairing of all of the coffee consumption and the donuts.
Yes, the donut plus coffee consumption has been
know.
quite off the charts this weekend.
I
Thank
know
you,
that,
Sarah
like,
Janes, Bogarts.
Typically, it's police officers who do that, but coffee roasters do that too.
Absolutely, I would agree.
So they're already on to the next coffee. This one is from Paradise Coffee Roasters from right here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Unfortunately, their head roaster could not be here this weekend. She is at a wedding. Fair. I hope there's good cake. I'm really into cake.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Every wedding that gets
I
brought
know.
up, it's a cake question.
Well, I get really upset when I go to weddings and there aren't cake. I feel like that's wrong.
What do they cut?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Silly.
Last time I was at Paradise, they were on a primo. I don't know if that's still the case.
I believe it is. Yeah, I had a conversation with Sam. She was talking about how they are on a primo and they are doing sort of half their charge weight, half the capacity.
Sure.
as their charge weight.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Very interesting. Very
She
interesting.
gave me some info, but I'm not going to divulge yet.
No.
I'll hold it. Hold the cards close to the chest.
That may have been a slurp accident. Rob Hoos has coughed. I'm not sure if he's going to be okay. He may have some liquid.
You're gonna have to inhalate.
Yeah, just making sure, buddy. We have a trained.
Shed a tear, it's okay.
I know CPR.
Okay,
I've always wanted to do the Heimlich on someone too, so.
totally
Ooh.
appropriate in the setting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Safety first and last, everyone.
Seeing some immense concentration at the coffee table.
Ooh, that was a wonderful slurp from Derek.
I'm getting warmed up.
Yeah, those first couple ones, those were just the intro.
I froze up.
And we're really cutting this apart and making this into a variety of jingles and Christmas carols of all sorts. Slurp. I got nothing actually. Jingle all the slurp. We could do that.
Check the slurp with... No.
Cups of coffee.
That's good, okay.
Yeah. Coming soon, Mill City's Christmas album. Not featuring me. Thanks.
We'll get Joe in on that. He's got the voice of an angel, or Celine Dion, depending on, you know.
It's oft debated whether Joe and Celine Dion are actually the same person. He spent an immense amount of time singing.
He does fly to Vegas. Just kidding. No.
Yep.
And around they come.
Nice.
Getting to dig right in. Coffee was very tart throughout. Finished tart, finished dry again. Herbal, brown sugar, peanut, kind of muddled. It was malty, like a Belgian ale kind of malt. A little bit of like a banana yeasty malty. Yeah. And it was a little dry, kind of like a oolong tea. It had oolong tea like maltiness to it as well, and maple sugar kind of sweetness on and off.
Yeah. In the nose, brown roast, nut, caramel, milk chocolate, malt, yeast, cereal. The acidity I felt was mild, a little muddled, but lemon-like, a little soft apple in the fruit. Body to me was a little thin. Now you said yeast or that sort of bready note, and that confused me with. I almost thought I was tasting an oxidized note, like it was maybe a little old, roasted. But I didn't see any. I didn't see any tearing. I didn't smell any oxidation in the ground.
It's a low-grown coffee.
But I think I was confusing that note with maybe that bready or yeasty note that you were tasting. Honey, graham. Thought overall clean and sweet. A little drying on the finish.
Lightly vegetal, slight cucumber skin for me. Medium acidity, a little bit drying with low sweetness, very light body compared to the notes, which were malty, yeasty, and nutty. I mean, it's still nice. So.
Yeah, very similar. So I got my nose, I thought was more brown sugar, malt, almond. You know, it kind of got me inspired. The cup was, I thought, a little mild. It was a mild cup. The body was a little thin. It was a little tea-like. I definitely got like a little bit of the cucumber, a little bit of garden peas, kind of a little slight leguminousness. But there was like a caramelized sugar note, a kind of butterscotchy note, but they were kind of more subtle and hidden in the background. It was overall kind of nutty and caramel with a toasty overall kind of finish, and it definitely was drying across the spectrum.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a long limb here, maybe walking the plank a bit. But my assumptions here, getting into the psychology, I think the psychology starts here at the mill. I feel like this is a low-grown coffee that somebody has milled really well to try to evoke as much fruit and sugar and acidity as they could at the mill level, and that the roaster was really focused on trying to highlight those characteristics. I feel like this is a honey coffee, and perhaps from Hawaii.
Wow.
That's my guess.
Wow.
Ooh, long rim.
Wow.
We gotta hold that.
Okay.
Or fortunately for you guys, there's another of the same coffee.
Well,
Okay.
no, it's not the same coffee, actually.
Really?
Yes. We're
the announcers are
we'll
having a
talk
disagreement.
more about what these coffees actually are, but it is from the same region, if you will.
It's definitely a region I'm not very familiar with. It
does
was a
not
little out of my
surprise
box.
Yeah.
Which is a huge hint, and I'm sorry, okay,
Okay.
I'm shutting up.
Lunar coffee.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
It came from the moon.
I don't have anything to add.
I've heard about
I
that.
think
Yeah, the
for-
Russians.
For me, maybe just slightly underdeveloped. So I would say that pushing for the acidity maybe took this one a little bit underdeveloped, at least once again for the water that we're tasting it on. So maybe just a little bit longer development to the same end color might help develop a little bit more of the interesting sugar browning stuff that you were noting lingering in the background, and maybe even present a little bit more fruit and less just straight acidity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes when we as roasters know that a coffee is lacking in a certain area and we see this brilliant part of the coffee, we
Right.
try to exemplify that brilliance maybe a little too much, and I think that's maybe what happened here. So if we just tame that acidity down and allow the coffee to be present in the way that it is, I think it would really open it up a little bit more.
Yeah, be more round.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And again.
Alrighty.
And we're
Man, it's gonna really take all of my strength to hold my tongue.
Yeah, that's why you're here. Fun for them is seeing you.
Squirm.
The pleasure profile threw me through a loop.
I really love them. It's so fun.
This
I'm really excited about this coffee. We have some really cool coffees on this list. Yeah, we have a lot of your classics, but we have some fun ones thrown in here, which is just exciting, you know?
couple of local roasters from here in Minneapolis have really thrown some curveballs.
I know, it's so fun. Well, so that might have been a little bit my doing, because I, in calling people up and being like, hey, come play at Focus on the Roast, said, you can bring your best coffee, you can bring your most difficult coffee, or you can bring your weirdest coffee. And a couple of people took me up on that, which I'm pretty into. That's super fun.
Well, so long as the slurping isn't totally offensive to everybody, then we'll just keep going.
Is this the one from the same organ?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
So, second coffee from Paradise. We're gonna get into the audience portion of this.
That was like a slow and wow, what a beautiful.
Losing on us to find out who has the best slurp. Oh, Rob. I said losing odds, sir.
That was an ooh Rob,
Yeah.
though. So an ooh Rob
Ooh,
from
Rob.
the audience.
Ooh, Rob.
And Rob's over there shaking his head. I think he's just a little embarrassed. I think he's just being a little camera shy.
Ian is putting more effort into this than I put into my taxes.
Look at you.
Because Ian's a professional.
A consummate professional.
Ah. Look at them go.
You ever done the
Joe clearing his palate with some water or hydrating, not really sure. Yeah, I just got here from Colorado a couple weeks ago, and I've noticed I'm more dehydrated here than I was at 6,000 feet altitude, so that's fun. So, you know, remember when you're drinking coffee, always to hydrate. Although they're not
Yes.
drinking, they're spitting, so I guess there's that.
Still, hydrate.
Yeah, still gotta
Always.
hydrate. Ian's right. And there he goes.
It's always a good time for water.
right?
Although what Ian's not telling you is that that's actually not water in his
just
cup.
vodka.
He's got gin. It helps him really loosen up and trust himself.
Gotta hit that gin and aquavit in between to clear
write
your
down
palate.
what he's feeling, what he's tasting.
Ready, guys?
All right.
Yes.
Okay, coffee
Ready?
number 4.
Yeah.
For me, there's a floral aroma almost to the edge of a soapiness to this coffee, especially in the beginning. But it wasn't a negative. That soapy note is not necessarily a negative. But overall, the cup was pretty mild, muddled, almond, very thin, like sharp tart acidity throughout. But the sharp tart acidity didn't have a whole lot of dynamic supporting it. Almost metallic and a little bit floral, like a tart green Granny Smith apple.
Yeah. Yeah, what was that? The soapy, I described more as a sweet herby in the nose with a citrus note, like a potpourri.
Could be that germ.
Yeah, dried floral sort of smell, which translated on the palate to be more straw-like. Got less of that sweet and herby and potpourri on the palate that I got in the nose. Light body, tea-like, and just drying, muddled.
Vegetal and herby and spicy on the nose for the ground coffee. I got a really nice hint of that tartness. For me is persimmon.
Nice.
So I was getting some persimmon out of that.
Yeah.
Some saltiness, some herbaceousness, malty and yeasty, low sweetness, chalky body. I think a lot of that, and maybe I'm stepping out too far on a limb, I think a lot of that has to do with just the actual greens themselves.
I agree.
And less the roasting of it. But yeah.
Yep. So it's similar. So some brown sugar, some vanilla, some vegetal notes in the nose. I kind of got some, in the original sips, I kind of got a little bit of tobacco, but like it was more like sweet tobacco, but kind of like in the way it was like a vegetal kind of note. But I also got some sweet kind of hazelnutty kind of things going on. Very tart. I called it a puckery coffee. It made my mouth pucker inside. It was just astringent and kind of dry the whole way, but there was like a fruit note that kind of almost made it juicy. It was almost like I said, I think the Granny Smith apple or something like that. It was like a dry, puckery kind of.
It's that persimmon.
Yeah, the persimmon, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great analogy there. Slight fruit. The body was good. It had a mild juiciness there, but overall the cup just kind of seemed to like be overall mild. You know, it seemed like it was lacking sugar or sweetness somewhere to give it balance.
Density. And it was lacking density.
Yeah,
That might be
Heaviness
a
or something
low
like
elevation bean attributing to that, or
Totally agree.
yeah.
I'm so itching to tell you what it is.
And I would assume this one's the washed version of the same coffee.
Can I tell you what they are?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so these are 2 coffees from Yunnan.
You know.
There you go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought it was Asian or
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
East
I was
Asian
at-
Pacific
I was
area.
in-
Coffee
Indo,
is from China,
but-
Yeah.
from a province that's usually known for their teas. It's kind of fun that a lot of the things that you were calling out are things that they had as tasting notes.
Yep.
Derek, on this last one, you were saying brown sugar, kind of astringent. They had molasses, red wine, and orange. You were talking about like a citrusiness, potpourri. This was the washed one. The first one was a natural, and the notes on that one were chocolate-covered oranges and fresh raspberries. And you guys were talking about a tartness, a maltiness, some oolong tea, maple sugar. And so it was just like fairly congruent there.
Very
Once
interesting.
again, yeah, super interesting.
Also, just from an educational standpoint, I loved one of the things that Derek, you said a minute ago, is that was a good analogy. And that's really what tasting notes are. They're an analogy for what it is that we're actually experiencing. So keep that in mind as we're trying to piece these flavors together. We're trying to draw flavor analogies for you. That was very perceptive.
Number 5, right?
Alrighty, moving on to the next one. So this coffee actually came all the way from Ecuador. It came in, I swear, it like had weird address and all this tape and just came in a silver bag with no information. And so we emailed every single person who signed up to be like, hey, was this your coffee? And we actually found out that it came from Comuna Coffee.
So it had nothing on it whatsoever.
Well, so it had where the coffee itself was from, so the origin of the coffee, and how high it was grown.
Sure.
And I think like 350 grams, written on a just plain silver bag.
Well, and frankly, that's all I have on my sheet at all.
Yeah.
So this will be a good adventure to find out what they think of it.
I'm excited.
We'll scribble some notes and send them on back.
For certain.
Yeah.
I will be interested to see, because we do have the information of how high this was grown. I wonder if they'll be able to guess. I just like challenging Joe to fun things like this mostly. So, gauntlet thrown.
My nerves always get the better of me.
He's kidding. Don't worry. Wow, that was a fun one.
That one had a 2-part slurp.
It did.
Yeah.
It was almost like an arpeggio. Melodic slurping. It's a thing. I just made
Mill
it
City's
one.
Christmas album.
Yeah, once again. I only slurp in Mosmos.
I only use golden cupping spoons.
You know, they used to use like real silver cupping spoons.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now, not as much. Bummer. Too much silver polish involved, I think. And then silver polish getting into your cupping bowls. Oh, not good. Right? Ugh.
Plus, silver changes the chemical complexity of the coffee.
There you go.
And is it accurate that gold doesn't impart flavors?
Gold is inert,
It's
Gold is
inert.
good.
but it's very expensive.
That's what
Yes.
my cupping spoons are made
It's
out
really
of.
heavy.
Nitrogen.
If you drop it while you're cupping, it just
So at
shatters
Cafe
like glass.
Imports, they only cup with gold spoons.
That's right.
That's what he's saying.
In tuxedos.
We have them carved.
They
into
don't
our
need
hands.
aprons.
Naked, so
They're
don't take them
advanced.
home.
Okay, digging right into this is coffee number 5. I forgot to write that down. Again, this one had a lot of salt. Salt up front, salt throughout. Almondy, pretty mild again. It did have some spiciness to it. The spiciness turned really savory, almost like turning into a dry tomato kind of taste. Starch-like as well. Reminded me of potato in some ways, but not like the potato defect, but just potato. It's drying, herbal.
Cool. Yeah, I got roasted almond and malt and cinnamon in the nose with a fairly dense body that picking out fruit notes of just getting red, red apple or black cherry. Tart throughout, dry finish. On the finish and aftertaste, a kind of like a Chichona barkiness. It was like kind of a bittering in a complex way. Brown spice, maple cocoa, like a dry baker's chocolate, baker's cocoa.
Malty, caramelly, and sweet for me. The medium minus acidity, fairly syrupy body. A little bit of citrus toward blood orange, so that was interesting, and like a caramel-covered macadamia, but it was very balanced. It was clean tasting, free of defect, and very mild. So.
Yeah. So I thought the nose was kind of malt. I got a little marmalade, citrus spice. I thought. Yeah, definitely. I picked up on the saltiness. I kind of feel like the original cup was a little bit of like muddled chocolate. You know what I mean? I couldn't really see through it. I thought maybe it was even older. Maybe the coffee had sat around a little bit post
And
roast.
it's got a little OT on there as
Yep.
well.
And then it kind of became like cocoa, but then I also got the citrus rind. There was a kind of drying citrus rind kind of note I picked up. I thought the body was medium, was present, nice. Finished astringent, and I felt like it had like a dry cocoa walnut kind of finish. It wasn't unpleasant, you know what I mean? I felt like there was a few times where it could have been sweeter, but the overall cup was not bad. And I'd say like later in the day I would drink it, as a later day coffee. Yeah.
Joe,
Yeah.
back to you.
Yeah, this
How
was.
high do you
Oh,
think
how
this
high
was
the
from?
altitude? Oh man.
If I tell you it was from Ecuador.
Well, the first thing that popped in my head was 1650. I'm just gonna go with my gut.
1300.
1300.
Below. Also, this is
a
kind
lot
of
of
the
pressure.
perfect example of a coffee from far away where their water is likely totally different than ours, has a totally different mineral makeup. So that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind.
And it probably also shipped and was depressurized while shipping, so that might be a little bit of the oxidation we're getting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And that may have sapped some of the aroma from this coffee.
Yeah.
Because the aroma was really kind of lacking. It was all about mouthfeel and tongue flavor and not like aromatics.
I agree.
Right on.
Very cool.
Cool.
Good notes.
And again,
All right. So we've actually been debating pretty much all week in the office about how to pronounce this coffee company, this next one. Cafe?
Cafique.
Cafic, I'm sorry. I wish I could do this justice. But this coffee came from a roastery in Helena, Montana.
Wonderful place.
Yeah. And we'll, I guess, learn more about it here in a minute. I won't tell you where it's from or really any information. We don't have too much information about this one. But I will tell you, the packaging for this one was on point. It was very beautiful. We're getting some oohs and ahs from the audience. Those slurps. Very impressive. Oh, Rob's making a thinking face.
It takes a lot of effort to think.
Joe's like, I do this all day, every day. It's fine.
Joe rocking a limited edition Cafe Imports hat. Joe, are those still available for purchase?
I think there may be one remaining.
Literally one. Okay,
Get it quick.
Rush over to cafeimports.com, or I believe it was on their blog that they were selling them. What proceeds from those hats go, I believe, to women producers in coffee. Is that correct, Joe?
I'm sorry, I was
Sorry,
not
he's
paying
spitting.
attention.
The proceeds, they go to women producers?
No, not for this hat. This hat
Oh,
was,
what's
I forget what the charity was. But it was
Okay, well, proceeds go to Solar Great. So, Cafe Imports does stuff like that. You know, they're pretty into doing great things. Like hiring Joe. And then keeping him around.
thank you.
Pulling them out to us.
Yep. We appreciate it. I'm imagining like a cyclone in Derek's mouth where the coffee just sucks in and
Like he only sucks from like one side of his
Yeah.
mouth and it just spins
that's
around.
what it sounds like to me.
We need a mouth cam.
Can you put a GoPro on the coffee?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On the the maybe one molecule of the liquid as it travels through.
Like a pipette. Just a single drop of coffee.
I would love a pipette.
Yeah,
'Cause I wanna say
absolutely.
pipette.
Yeah, exactly.
Pipette.
I had no idea what a pipette was until yesterday, but it does sound hilarious.
Really? It's a dropper.
It's a tiny little.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
I
I've
honestly,
used many a pipette.
Pippin.
Alrighty, it looks like our panel of tasters is back.
This was an interesting coffee for me. There were some very, very distinct notes for me. It was a very, very vibrant coffee overall. I think I could say that. Very tart, but in a really pleasant way this time, not just like an assertive way that dominated the cup. Tart like apple cider, really complex, a lot of fruit-like characteristic. Caramel, nice body, a lot of brown sugar, deep, rich, sweet brown sugar. Pecan, plum, and the finish as I was walking around kind of reminded me of a rosé in a way. It kind of had the complexity of a little reddish wine, a little whitish wine.
Right.
Yeah, very nice coffee. In the nose, very vibrant, like you said, floral, apricot, dark plum, spiced apple. In the palate, or on the palate, those florals became more potpourri-like, dried florals. Spice started to come in, coriander, balanced with good roast flavor, with some brown roast and spice flavor, cocoa or cacao. A dried citrus peel, which I found pleasant. It was a crisp finish, a drier, crisp finish. It wasn't. It was more of a medium degree of roast, maybe a little darker than I would have taken it if I were roasting this coffee. But I just found all the aromas and flavors, and that I actually liked kind of that crisp, dry, cocoa-y finish. I think was good. It's really great.
The aroma for me was lemon, lime, floral, vanilla, and black tea. The weird face I made was because mixed berry yogurt. So it's like getting like lactic and tartaric acid, like blackberry, vanilla,
Like
a
a
little bit of
fruity
lactic
Chardonnay or
acid to
something.
kind of give it a nice body. Yeah.
Wild.
Floral, dry, for me, I would have enjoyed just a bit more acidity, so I put a little mild, but it's not in any way a bad thing. So.
Right, yeah, no, I totally agree. So in the nose, I kind of got very citrus. I put bergamot, orange. The cup, the only thing, I thought the cup was very congruent from start to finish. It didn't fall off. The only thing I thought was in the start, there was a little slightness that I didn't expect. But then it became citrus across the cup for me. It was very clean, juicy. It kind of had a burnt orange in a good way, / lemon candy kind of note, I thought. Tea-like body. I started to pick up grapefruit. I love the winey note because I wanted to write winey down, but I just wasn't that confident in it, so I didn't write it down. But I kind of felt like there was a winey thing coming on at the end. And I felt like the caramelized sugar balance versus the citrus was really nice, siding a little more on the caramelized sugar. I think what Ian said
was almost desserty. Like it had that good, like there was caramelization. The caramelization added to the fruit and citrus.
Right,
Absolutely.
right, exactly.
Like it was bruleed.
Yes.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was like more like a brulee than not. You know what I mean? Yeah, I thought that was great.
Cool.
But like Ian was saying, though, I think that you could take this a little bit lighter and then showcase a little more of the fruit and a little less of the citrus, and it might be a little more vibrant, but it's kind of stylized choice, I want to say.
Yeah. Like, this is a good example of a very high quality green with probably good elevation and density and processing, where you really can take it a lot of different places. That's a good thing about buying good quality green. You've got a product where you can go many different ways with it. It's not just where you're just going to have kind of a singular band of perfection with it.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like this is a roaster that put their best foot forward and really added their own emphasis into the coffee.
In a lot of ways, it tasted like Ethiopian to me.
Yeah,
Ethiopian.
that was
Yeah,
Yoga
that's what I would
Cafe.
say, too.
Ethiopian.
Although it reminds me of an Ecuadorian coffee variety called Sidra, which is named kind of after apple cider. It had that apple cider Sidra-like characteristic.
Cool.
That sounds good. Write that down, everybody.
Right on. Well, so it was provided that it's from Ethiopia. We don't really know anything else about it. We don't know processing method. We don't know
it's
where
washed.
It's a wash for
Wash.
sure.
Oh yeah, it was clean.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
Cool.
Nice.
Thank you, guys.
Good stuff.
You want to say that again, because I've already forgotten it. This is how often we've been debating this name. Cafeic. Perfect. So you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what
None of
the
my
Google
weird-
machine said.
None of my weird
But-
pronunciations made the
so
cut.
it's, on the bag, it's broken up by syllable almost, and it made it look like Cafeic instead of Cafeic, which was interesting. Anyway,
Design's important.
it is.
It's very important.
It's a very appealing bag, though. It's a very clean design.
Well, and I think one of the biggest benefits
midway, like a
being in the
5
coffee industry from almost the consumer side is being able to see the plethora of bag options and taking it a step further, going to the SCA,
Goodness.
seeing the vendors that are available for you.
The myriad bag options out there stress me out. Just add that to the list of reasons I'm never going to own my own roaster.
Design just daunting.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So much.
Add to that, they have AR bags now. Augmented reality. There's all sorts of stuff to appeal to the
I don't even need the coffee at that point. I'm just going to be like,
bag.
so exciting.
Exactly.
Man. So, next one is from True Coffee Roasters, and I believe said roaster is in the office. Right here in front of us, down in front. Wonderful. What are you roasting on?
Probat GM12.
Wonderful. That's a Probat
This is,
12 kilo. Wonderful. We won't give any details of this coffee away.
No, but we can have a small conversation. What kind of charge size was this?
No, it's an 18 pound charge size. We're roasting about 80%.
Capacity there.
Sure.
So 80% capacity on this roaster is what he's roasting with.
It's a production roast that you sampled some for us.
Yeah, I just got some of our production roast looking for some feedback.
Yeah. Exactly what this.
So for the people at home, he did say this is just one of his production roasts. So that's awesome.
How much did you send in out of that 18 pound?
1 pound.
1 pound? Okay, great. Thank you.
Right on. Exciting. That means there might be some for us to try later.
I'm hoping, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
With the notes provided, yes, I do hope so.
When did you roast it? Just out of curiosity.
Wednesday.
On Wednesday, wonderful.
actually
And
good.
today is Saturday for those of you watching in the future.
Art.
I could have said on the 18th.
Lied. Yeah. It seems our slurp intensity, or as we call,
It's a bell
Has
curve,
declined.
just like everything.
I agree. Yeah. As we start getting
We
towards
went to the peak. Now we're up. But guys, we're only like a third done, 2/5 done with this list.
How many do we have?
No, I'm saying like.
I'm
get your
excited.
slurp intensity back
Yeah.
up.
It's a roller coaster of
Come
slurp
on.
intensity.
Why don't do the sharp slurps? Just keep it steady the whole
Oh,
time.
I thought that was.
Oh, I'll keep up with you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, a lot of barley wine on this. It was very fruited, heavy fruited forward. There was a subtle note of chive, which I'm not a big fan of. It tasted like a natural processed coffee that had maybe a little issue there. There was a lot of roast on this coffee as well for the natural. Kind of a sharp roast edge to it that kind of held some of that fruit down and thinned out the body a bit for me. Very cocoa-y, very berry forward. So the highlights are going to be berry and roast.
Yeah, blackberry chocolate brown roast. And the nose on the mouth, more of the malt. I got anise, licorice, smoky chocolate milk, and cocoa, a mixture of cocoa / fruity pebble milk after you've eaten the lovely mixture of cocoa and fruity pebbles.
So Cocoa Pebbles and Fruity Pebbles, or
Yeah,
just
together.
Cocoa and Fruity Pebbles?
No, together.
back.
Cocoa Pebbles and Fruity
No,
Pebbles
mixed in the same bowl.
That may be the greatest cupping note I've ever heard in my entire life.
What are we all going to do after?
On this coffee.
The milk from Cocoa Pebbles.
Yeah, I found the aftertaste of this, and particularly the roasted aftertaste of this and chocolatiness, quite pleasing. I liked that
Yeah.
chocolatey,
Yeah.
roasty, and it had that fruit up high, but it had the milk chocolate in the base. It wasn't too drying on my mouth. I didn't get a lot of astringency, which was nice for a coffee of this roast.
Yeah.
Though I do agree with Joe that the acidity was muddled and the body was missing. So my guess is it could have been maybe a fast roast.
That's what I wrote. Yeah. Faster roast.
I also got the licorice. That was one of the things that really stood out to me on the first taste. Star anise.
Nice.
Definitely tastes like a natural. It is a bit Quakery. So dry peanut shell, nutty, unripe.
Could have been where
which
the
is
chive
agricultural.
note was coming from.
Could have been a chive note,
Yeah.
Earthy.
try
I got like a very light. It's not quite ferment, but moving toward ferment with blueberries. So it's just right on the edge there. For me, maybe a little dark and a little long. Like it could be dialed back just a touch, but nutty, drying, earthy chocolate.
Yeah, I think I was like right with these guys too. I thought the nose was berry, and I wrote strawberry and blueberry down, and I always feel like strawberry is kind of going more towards ferment. It's like a really juicy kind of berry, so I feel like it was a fine line of berry, but then also milk chocolate. It was like milk chocolate and berry, but then the actual liquid smell, it had a citrusy note that I found kind of interesting, but then it went to an herbal thing, and I think that might have been something you guys picked up, the chive and things, because I put herbal question because I couldn't really figure it out. But the overall cup was, it had an edge of roast on it that I felt like slightly brought down the quality of the green. I thought that there was a really dark chocolatey note across the whole thing, and I didn't really feel like it was drying or overly astringent to where the cup was like unpleasant. Like right now in my mouth, I'm happy with the way my mouth is.
Or
It's not like
or
something like
overly
that.
bitter.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. But it did have
it
like
had a rough edge.
Right,
Just
right.
The edge of it was
Yep.
a little just rough, but it wasn't.
It wasn't something that you wouldn't want your consumers to try or anything like that. I think there's actually a lot of cups like this that are quite popular. I felt like it was more bittersweet chocolate. A bittersweet chocolate. It had a roasty note. The body was slightly buttery. And my thoughts were, slow it down approaching first crack.
Yeah, it might soften those edges. I
Yep,
think
yep,
I would
yep,
approach
yep,
it a little
yep.
slower, gentler.
Agreed.
Thanks, guys.
So they were spot on. This was a natural. This was in Ethiopia. And notes of berry, cocoa, and lemon were what were advertised. That was pretty much said. We heard barley wine, which can be kind of fermenty. I'm intrigued by their assessment of the green. That's always fascinating to me, especially when you're only assessing the roasted coffee.
Right.
Especially when you're assessing it on like the roastier side of things. It's harder to assess the green at that point. I find it's easier to assess a lightly roasted coffee
Sure. Yeah.
When assessing a green.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit less of a chemical change.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then you don't have to sort of anticipate, okay, this could be roast defect.
Yeah, I got you
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's always really interesting approaching a new coffee as a roaster, especially with all the different processing methods and how it's become kind of trendy to do experimental processing methods. And there are a handful of farms that will process their coffees in a handful of different ways, and that also can be challenging and fun.
Yeah, we have in-house a Honduras processed 3 separate ways on the exact same farm.
Yeah.
The differences between just the cup on the same profile is astounding. And even trying to get that exact same profile is a daunting task
Oh, definitely.
the first time you attack that.
Definitely. Well, and then you go back further and looking again at the green. So you have those 3 processing methods, but that's not all that's going into the green. It's
Exactly.
a lot about how well that green has been sorted, how that's going to interact, like each bean is going to interact with another in the roaster, is going to be pretty significant.
It's very easy to tell when your coffee hasn't been sorted, even by size,
Yeah.
especially
definitely.
post-roast.
Definitely. Definitely. Have you ever accidentally put green coffee in the roaster and realized afterwards that there were definitely some dried cherry in there?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that
always
has
a
happened.
fun
Yes.
experience.
Well, speaking of experimental processing methods, we have a canal washed in-house right now, which, if we don't properly sort it, contains full cherries. And that is something that I personally have never had the privilege of seeing in a bag of processed coffee.
Big, this guy.
Yeah. It's
I'm
a
sorry, the Minnesota thing. Yeah, I'm not going to
bag. Yeah, the bag of coffee.
The big.
For all those watching in archive time, this is how we really talk. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Big.
Oh, goodness. I lived in Duluth for a while. Somebody in the audience can appreciate that accent for sure.
Somebody.
Somebody. Russ.
Wonderful.
What's that?
Is she bagging on you for the bag?
Maybe.
Bagging on me for the bag.
I'm
What? I
baking.
might just toot out of here and go.
Oh, man. Wait, so before...
We just went full Fargo.
Oofta. I'll eat a casserole and a hot dish on the way.
Take some pop with you too.
Yeah, exactly. Some soda pops.
Before you guys really get going on evaluating this coffee, we will let you know that, again, this roaster is in the audience. This came from Uncommon Grounds in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Excellent. Cool. All right. My notes on this are raisin, dry floral, sugar, lemon, some subtle nut, black tea, clove, some tart cherry. It had a lot going on, but everything was just kind of, I felt like it had the reins on it still. It was a little muddled. It took me a while to start really tasting those notes, for those notes to really start to come to fruition. When they did, it's really nice. The notes that were there were really nice. A nice kind of dryish, vanilla-like finish. That's where I'm going to leave off.
Okay, soft, dried floral, dried apricot, tobacco, brown roast, mild acidity. I felt the flavors and acidity were muddled, didn't kind of lack that clarity that I was looking for in the acid and in the flavors. A bit of a grainy texture or cereal hardness in the mouth. Overall, kind of a thinner body than maybe I had an expectation for when I was smelling the grounds. Overall, there's really nice notes there, the florals and dried fruits and tobacco notes. I think clarity could be improved upon.
Nutty and chocolate on the first go in the aroma, and then malty And I don't know if y'all are familiar with cowtail candy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that, but I got a bit of that going on with it as well. I don't mean I don't mean actual cowtail. Sorry.
Okay.
It's just the only thing I could think of. It's multi-toured cowtail is what I wrote. Plum. So I agree with you on the plum or the stone fruit. A little bit drying. Some grapeseed toward metallic. Seemed a little bit fast in development to me, but.
Yeah, so the nose for me in the dry was more citrus and orange with a little bit of lemon. On the wet, I kind of picked up like a tamarind, maybe even a green tobacco note. The stone fruit was good. It's kind of more like, for me, it was like a little more like an unripe apricot, lots of floral notes, but not a lot of sweetness there. The acidity was a little softer than expected. It was very citrusy across the board, but the body I also felt was kind of thin. I kind of got like a little macadamia nut kind of butteriness to it. Overall, I thought the cup was soft and mild than I would expect, and there was like a kind of reoccurring mild green vegetal note throughout it. And I also felt like the acid was a little more sour than crisp, and there was a slight vegetal note to the finish. And like I think I said, I think it went a little bit too fast maybe, but it was almost as if I was staring through like dirty glass at it. You know what I mean? Like I knew that there was a lot of quality behind the glass, but I couldn't see through the dirty glass to get to it.
All right.
Any guesses on origin?
Ethiopia?
Ethiopia. Yeah.
Where in Ethiopia?
Yirgacheffe. Washed.
Sorry, I'm
Washed.
just being brat. Yes, it's in Ethiopia. It is from Yirgacheffe.
Processing method, you're
So it's a washed Ethiopia
Yep.
from Kepi Imports.
Yep.
And it didn't go fast. It might have gone a little long. It was medium roast. It probably came out, yielding 86% or so. I probably lost 14% on it. So it's not a light roast by any means. That's my production roast.
Yeah, this I think is a great presentation for a lot of people that may not need that sharp, intense flour Ethiopia. This is a mild version of that. So for a lot of customers, this is right on the money.
Yep, definitely, for sure.
I agree.
very cool. Another production roast. That's amazing to see. Another production roast.
Those are so good.
Accurate. That's easier to take
It's like an orange wrap.
feedback and apply it,
Well, ideally, we'll be evaluating somebody's.
I think maybe I bought it once, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
Is it like caramel and nougat or something like that?
There's no way for us to critique and,
Okay, I'll go for
frankly, criticize.
Yeah.
It's-
Well, also, what are you going to learn from something that, if it's not your everyday roasting? Exactly. Yeah. It's just silly.
No, I agree completely.
Yeah. So next coffee is from another roaster who is also in the audience. I want to say Rouse, but it could be Rouse. Rouse. Yes, I was right.
Like grouse,
Like mouse.
without the G.
No, like mouse, but Rouse.
Rouse.
I'll say grouse.
I got you. Like grouse without the G.
This one.
Wait, what? Like hoose. Hoose and house. Yeah, I got you. Absolutely. Thank you for providing cupping notes for this.
Yes, that is fun. I'm enjoying comparing and contrasting what they come up with to. Wow, I'm sorry. That is so distracting.
It sounded like a bottle rocket going off in the building.
So good. I really hope that their mics are on while they're slurping.
We got a nod from the booth.
Whew.
Yeah. Again, those microphones will need cleaning after this. Let's see here.
You look like you're thinking mighty hard, Nick.
I'm very interested in this whole process. The calibration of cupping is something that I personally have always been striving towards. I taste things in a cup. I drink coffee constantly, and yet sitting with Q graders, sitting with cupping professionals, I feel more inadequate in that moment, flavor-wise, than I
I always just say trust yourself, trust your gut, trust what your palate is telling you.
Yes. Yeah.
I do find it fascinating. I hear a lot of chatter in the industry about calibration and how we as a nation are uncalibrated. And I wonder if, sort of to Rob's point, if it's just the discrepancy in water, or if it's, you know.
It's perspective, though. Just as
I think it's probably a combination of variables at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
everything else.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no one answer.
It's relative answer. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. A relative answer to a relative question. Oh, wow.
Was it?
They made up their minds. Alrighty. Joe?
This is number 9.
Number 9. Number 9.
It's very
Sorry,
dark.
those jokes.
Roasted coffee. This one's a lot darker. I think this is the darkest one we've had yet on the table. Black olive, a little bit of rubber band, dark rum, like a dark spiced rum, burnt sugar, pretty burnt sugar, dark roasted nut. It also had some not so dark characteristic. The not so dark characteristic was a little herbaceous. It reminded me a lot of celery seed and tobacco. Tobacco, both green and smoke.
Great. Nose, blackberry, rubber, pungent, and oak. In the mouth, clove, spice, roast, anise, rubber, smoke, burnt blackberry pie, burnt sugar. A little bit of oxidized flavor, a little oxidation, which happens more quickly with a darker roast as the oils are on the outside of the bean, so you get that flavor along with it. I did find some lighter notes in there too that were, I still think the acidity here was present.
I do agree.
And present and playful. I don't know. It was, it was an alliteration. I'm a fan of those. Yes, good of you.
They had darker natural sort of characteristics. A little bit of smoke and wood resin. Got a little bit of tar, which gave it a little bit of a sticky mouthfeel to me, on the first sip until I acclimated to it. Nice notes were chocolate and tobacco. Hints of fruit, plum, but similar to like Turkish delight, maybe a little bit. How plum represents in there.
Yeah, for sure. So, and at first I thought that in the aromas it was kind of red fruity, but then it got like good amount of roast, dark chocolate, dark tobacco. There's a note of cedar I thought in it. Then the cup was kind of like fruit, but then it went right into like dark caramelized sugar. You know, there was it was weird because there was like a really dark caramelized sugar note and a roasty note, but there was also like the fruit that would come through. So I even got like cotton candy and kind of like maple syrup, dark roasted almond, but like caramelized sugar with like 3 exclamation points. The body was a little thinner than I would thought for the overall development of the cup. But I thought it was a good balance between roasty and fruity for the overall cup, I thought.
Any guesses as to origin or processing method?
Naturally Ethiopian.
Costa.
Natural.
Joe was on it.
Yeah.
The natural Ethiopia.
I feel like that discord that we had between the dark roasty notes and the presence of acidity still indicated a shorter development time.
Okay.
To that in color?
Yeah.
Or
Very
faster
fast
roast?
roast, fast to dark, I feel.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
I have no idea,
yeah.
but you guys know.
The total time of the roast was, I believe, 15 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
What are you roasting on?
Ambex wine 2.
Oh yeah.
All right, on an
The
Ambex.
first crack happened about 10 minutes.
So you had good development time on there, yeah.
Yeah, the paling in yellow was about 5 minutes.
Right on.
I'd say.
Cool. Well, that's unexpected. That coffee just presents like two ideas at once.
Yeah, it totally does. That was exactly what I thought too.
I think this also goes to show what starting with a good quality green
Right.
does for you. You can
Right.
take it even to this darkness and find some, some of the origin characteristics and those lighter notes come through, even in a heavy roast.
Very
Yeah.
interesting.
How are you using this?
This is production.
Production. Yeah.
Cool.
We often make the analogy here at Mill City that the better green you get, it's like widening your bullseye. It makes it much easier to roast a beautiful cup, whether you're dropping it at a lighter development stage or with more development.
Well, and the question exists all the time as roasters are coming in order to go out, we sell a ridiculous amount of small bag quantities of coffee, 5-10 pound bags.
Bags.
Bags. What do we say here?
Bags.
Bags. bags. There's like an H
We'll
in
work
yours.
on it. Sorry, I
Yeah, we'll do
interrupted
this.
you, though. What were
We'll
you
do this
saying?
off camera
What were you saying
at a
about
conference.
The bags? The 5-pound bags. That
It's
we
very
sell.
interesting to see people make the decision between a higher quality green and a lower price point. And you can kind of tell who's going to have some success right off the bat with who's willing to accept a higher price point in order to help them learn, as opposed to the guy with a 1K who will buy 85 pounds of seasoning greens, call us up and say, these floor sweepings didn't roast or cook well. To which I'll say, of course.
Yeah.
They weren't supposed to.
Yeah. Joe brought up earlier that getting those mid-range coffees, the ones where the bullseye isn't so wide that no matter how you roast it, it's going to be kind of great. But getting those coffees within like in the 80 points
Exactly.
kind of category really teach you so much.
Yeah, and that's
And from personal experience, like that's how I learned how to roast. So
exactly, me too.
yeah, it's good stuff.
Raise your hand in the audience if you started on microlots. Started on microlots.
Yeah, there are a few hands raised.
Perfect. How many people started on training greens? $3 and lower.
$3 and lower. Yeah, that was me.
How many people started right in the middle ground between there with decent quality greens and
Yeah.
kind of both?
All right.
Okay, good.
Wow, we have quite a spread in the audience.
Yeah.
It sort of seems fairly evenly cut. Fascinating.
It really is, actually.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So the next one, we also have our roaster in the audience here. And we actually have 3 copies from this roaster, so we'll totally hold off on what all 3 are, even though they are very different. And we'll let you know that they are from right next door in St. Paul. This is Bootstrap Coffee Roaster.
It's a local name you can find on plenty of co-op shelves here. Always a fantastic... Honestly, I think you hit these shelves often, but I constantly see your bag alone on the shelf with empty space next to it, which has to be a good thing.
Well, I've noticed the roast dates are always fresh.
Exactly.
So that means that they're on their game, if you will.
And in this day and age with the plethora of options in specialty coffee, especially in Minneapolis, not being on top of that is a sure way to lose customers, lose out on
accounts,
that next level
That's
of
fair.
customer. And
That's very fair.
yeah, always been represented well, Bootstrap. Very well.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited to hear about these coffees. Yeah, just kind of across the board.
Me too.
I'm like, again, I have to sit on my hands and not tell them what they are. It's gonna kill me. So difficult. Alrighty.
204 approach.
This was another roast that was a little on the darker side. Some darker tones. I saw a little oil exposed on some of the beans. Savory, peppery, dark sugar, clove, cola. Brownie, dried fig, but dried fig in a savory way toward tomato almost. Like a savory vegetal dried fig. I will hold what I think this is, but the flavor of it, this may sound weird even though it was hot, the flavor of it kind of reminded me of cold brew flavor of coffee too.
Flavor.
Yeah.
Cool. Herby, earthy, spicy, wood spice in the nose. I noticed some tipping on some beans, some tearing. Flavor-wise, though, burnt sugar, marshmallow, cinnamon, cinchona bark, vanilla, that matches that kind of cola, pepper, a little oxidation, I think probably because of the tearing, the oil, and cigarette tobacco.
I have a question for you guys later about that too. For me, it was medium dark. It wasn't terribly dark. I think that some of this might be due to some cellular damage during drying. The fact that it's tearing out, I would doubt that it's old coffee. And some of the flavors, the just kind of general mutedness, so it just might have been dried really quickly, but that's just a terrible guess and out on a huge limb. Natural process characteristics to me. There were, in the aroma only, I didn't really note it on the actual cup, but there was a lot of unripe characteristics and Quaker-like characteristics coming to me in the nose. Didn't really show up in the cup to the extent it was in the nose for me. There's a bit of juiciness, nutty, almond to walnut, some savory characteristics, a little bit of caramel and amaretto, lower sweetness.
Yeah, so in the nose for me, I kind of got some rye bread, a little green pepper, some kind of green tobacco, and then the wet was more of dark tobacco with coconut, or cocoa, I should say. Oh. But yeah, I kind of felt like felt like it kind of had a dark roast characteristic across the board, but not in a negative way. Definitely the black pepper, the spice. I felt like it was really burnt sugary / kind of molasses. There was also a buttery lactic acid note in there that I kind of liked. It kind of added some complexity to the overall like finish, and then the overall finish I felt like was cocoa with bittersweet chocolate.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is a blend. It reminds me of a blend. It has a lot of different components kind of rolled together. I was getting what seemed to me like something Indonesian, something Central American, all kind of put together.
I'm gonna say Ugandan.
All right. Okay, we will give it away since there are 3 totally distinct coffees. This is their blue collar blend.
Okay.
And based on all of your descriptors and based off the name, I would buy this. Like, this is a blue collar blend. This sounds like everyday breakfast coffee. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
I actually found this isn't really a roast level that that I usually go for as a personal preference, but I found myself keep wanting to taste it.
I want to drink that and
there was
eat
a complexity
breakfast
to it,
burrito.
and I found those pepper and cola notes and things kind of interesting and fun, and it kind of reminded me of like a Dr. Pepper or something.
Absolutely.
That had all of those sort of
those
spice
flavors.
and prune and dark elements and stuff in it. I think great consumer blend.
You made it sound really appealing, and your marketing's on point, let me tell you. That's amazing.
I didn't actually put down any roast notes either.
No,
I thought
it wasn't overly bitter, it wasn't astringent, just had nice complexity.
It's a
And
properly done dark roast, in my opinion. Yeah, it's very great.
Cool.
Right.
Solid. Very cool. I always love hearing what people's signature blends are named. And I'm also fascinated by the distinction between people who put blend after it and then people who don't. So, for instance, I think of Stumptown and Hairbender. No one calls it Hairbender Blend. They call it Hairbender.
Are they going after a specific origin or a specific cup?
Specific cup, you're
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Blue collar describes it. You know what you're going into when you buy that bag of coffee. I think that's pretty cool. Hairbender, like, it's gonna bend my hair, make me that caffeinated. I know the story behind it. Like, okay, cool, I like it. But
I mean, we were at Dickies
I didn't know
here,
the
so
story. I was like, what? Hairbender? Weird.
yeah.
So
That's why I can't drink surly beer. Everything just confuses me.
it makes you furious.
Ha!
Sorry.
Terrible beer jokes.
Of Hairbender? Hairbender was the name of the salon, I believe, that Stumptown was in. Or, like, their original location took over a salon. Yeah.
Now, about the blue collar, is that proprietary, what you're blending? Could you tell us?
Yeah, it's a Honduras rare, 60% and then 40% of the Nicaragua.
Really?
All right, so that was 60% Honduras, 40 Nicaragua.
That's a fairly unconventional blend. Is that post-roast or pre-roast? Very cool.
Pre-roast blending.
Very cool. All right, well, we can find that in almost any co-op in St. Paul, right? Just about.
Right on.
We will.
Minneapolis.
And Minneapolis, that's a great point. Right next to you, Derek.
Right northeast.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always great to see a local act shine. Minneapolis
is.
has a fantastic coffee scene that if
We
any of you,
do.
all of you should come in for a roaster school or an event like Mini Roasta, this is the place to really explore coffee.
I mean, and it makes sense that there are so many great roasteries here, considering Cafe Imports is here, and you have that wonderful resource just like sitting at your feet.
Well,
I would scoop it up.
And you're a transplant, but
Yeah, this is true.
are a thing. So a hot, nice
Roaster
cup of coffee is
and sitting by a roaster.
yeah.
That was really the kicker for me in deciding. I was like, well, I'll be sitting by roasters all winter long. I think I can do that.
Exactly.
That'll be warm.
Netflix needs to put up a Yuletide roaster, just a shot of the burners underneath. I think I'd rather have that on my TV than
I would
some
too.
log.
That's, Silly.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, the blue flame, it's far more inviting to me.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. Wonderful.
Our next is complete with cupping notes, origin, and process.
Processing method.
Let's see how close we can get. Cupping panel.
This coffee was lovely. I could have probably written about it all day here because it had a whole lot going on in the cup. But I'm going to try to stick to the sharp notes. Very bright acidity, tart, clean, but yet full of berries. Dried cherry, cranberry, cola, like really sweet cherry cola, lemon lime. So it was almost like lemon lime and cola existing parallel to each other. There was a slight drying finish, which is something that was a negative to me. That was pretty much the only negative. A lot of sugar, dates, honey, an oaky rum-like characteristic, a lot of nutmeg-type spice. Nutmeg-type spice almost gives a little interesting tingle, like eucalyptic, almost canophoric. There was a touch of that, which could for some people be negative, but I think it was roasted in a way to where for most people that would be almost imperceivable. So, yeah.
Yeah, complex for sure, very dense, a lot going on. The blueberry, dark cherry, caramel, and cola on the nose. I almost had like a surprising first taste. It was so much flavor at once. And I was getting what at first was a little negative flavor to me that was like an acetone or alcohol. That went away as it cooled and I began tasting it more, but it was like this sharp flavor that hit me. It was the first thing that I tasted, and then that gave way to more of like a cognac type brandy, dried berries and dark honey, high acidity. The only thing I found that I didn't like was a slightly drying finish, yeah, if I were roasting this, I may have dialed back dropped at a little lighter temperature, to a little longer duration, see if we could get rid of that dryness and keep all of that nice fruit and complexity.
So what you noted is eucalyptus, Joe. For me, it was effervescent, and that tied with the crazy fruit. I kind of wrote grape soda. I thought it was crazy. Like the first sip was just out there.
Bracing.
Massive amount of grapes.
Right.
Very effervescent. Had a malty character to it as well, with a little bit of like a bay leaf or a sage, like some sort of herbaceous thing. It wasn't entirely unpleasant, it was just there. Some blueberry, caramel, and toffee. And I wrote kind of a similar note. I would just bring the end temp down a little bit to try and get a little bit more sweetness to come out of it. But the acidity on it was insane.
Yeah,
and
complex,
very pleasant.
Yeah, this coffee was awesome. I mean, I'm just gonna say, tropical fruit, hibiscus, citrus, red fruit. This one's for Steve Green. Stone fruit and Meyer lemon. Fruit punch across the board. I thought it was an awesome fruit punch. Juicy, fruity fruit punch. I felt like the balance was the thing that I really loved. The fruit, acid, sweetness, body balance, the way that those all played off of each other. I felt like it just had, like Joe said, you could write a story about in the cup. The cup had a lot going on. Beautiful nuance. I thought it really showcased the origin and the process. There was the slight drying at the finish, which I couldn't decide if I liked or didn't like, because sometimes with naturals, or if this is a natural, I'm going to say, they linger so long with the sweetness on your tongue that can almost be like a little bit sickening too. And so it's a fine line with the natural coffee, whether you want it to be sickeningly sweet or whether you want it to be tart and bright or how it is. And sometimes I like the drying finish a little bit because it reminds you a little bit of black tea, that kind of slight astringency you get in a black tea that makes it crisp and refreshing.
Yeah, I think what you said about this being a really cool look at origin and processing, I think that I could summarize this as a good look at contemplative collaboration, because whoever milled the coffee knew exactly what they were doing.
Right.
Whoever roasted this coffee was very contemplative in the process.
He's right over there. Whoever roasted that
No pressure.
coffee.
And yeah, when you drink it, there's so many layers to it that it's just really, you want to sit there and compliment, or what's the word I'm
Thinking about
looking
it,
for?
thinking,
Contemplate
being
it.
pensive.
Yes. Yeah, but be pensive in like a really relaxed, this is delicious, I'm enjoying every sip kind of way.
Take a moment and enjoy it.
Wow.
Lovely.
High praise pretty much across the board. We had a lovely from Joe, beautiful nuance from Derek.
Is that what you wrote down? I just
yeah.
wrote down massive amounts of grape.
Yeah, there's that too.
I like that
also
cupping.
Really
Yeah.
did like
I like
all
that
of
cupping.
the different sodas that were touched
Eighth
on.
grade.
The effervescence thing is really
I want
awesome.
to drink this coffee. On the label, we were advertised with dried fruits, floral aromatics, full creamy body.
And judging based on what Joe and Derek have said here, I think that's almost too short.
I was gonna say, I think there needs to be a QR code that takes you
Yeah.
to like a whole like page, you know, or just like endless streaming
All
of
right,
stuff.
so food for thought.
That's just me.
We'll build that. I got you. Yeah.
You could, just switch up your whole bagging game to the augmented reality situation.
We heard about that the other day.
Fruits flying at you as you stare at your phone. Absolutely.
Wonderful. So this was a natural process coffee from Ethiopia. Again, from Bootstrap Coffee Roasters from right here in St. Paul. Pretty rad.
Super rad.
So we have one last coffee from Bootstrap. I'm most excited about this one, I'll be real. Although I would like to just give you a hand, sir, for being the only person who gave us a blend.
That's a good point.
So that's,
Curveball.
that's bold. That takes some guts.
I like that.
And I like that a lot. That's pretty cool.
I agree.
Yeah, I think blends are, they're cast aside way too quickly and they have so much value. I love a good blend.
Well, and not only from the cupping point of view, but from a margin point of view, from a roaster point of view, they make for slurps. Let's be real. These, we're back to single origin slurps. Oh. Have you ever personally gone to sniff ground coffee and just, right? Like, yeah?
Yeah, I've actually never snorted anything else through my nostrils except ground coffee. And have you ever eaten a brownie with powdered sugar on top? I've done
okay.
that. Those are the two things.
We
that
stayed
I've
away from that topic
my
perfectly.
nose and,
Fantastic.
I choke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, doing in cupping the. Oh, it's so
Oh, yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Ow.
That's actually how I clear my portafilters now. I just snort them. It works so well. Yeah, absolutely. What else would you possibly snort in coffee besides?
Nothing.
Yeah, right?
I'm okay, thanks.
You're okay.
I have had coffee come out of my nose. Drinking it though.
Yeah.
I was laughing too hard.
The cupping note on this, check that last cupping note.
Oh yeah, no. I actually believe it too.
I actually want to see someone use that exactly.
So this coffee, it was not advertised what the processing method is, and I would really like to hear what your guesses are. I have a guess just from the notes that we were given, and then I would like to hear what it actually is. So.
Okay, cupping notes on this, very tart to almost sour in some ways. It was a very interesting cup. There is a type of liqueur called Frangelico, which is like a really nutty, weirdly nutty hazelnut. Yeah, but it's
Sour nutty.
It doesn't taste like hazelnut when you drink it. It tastes like Frangelico. That's what it tastes like. So it had a little bit of that hazelnutty Frangelico kind of flavor. Also with mesquite, but mesquite, not super burnt mesquite wood, but just a hint of mesquite smoke. Apple, floral, sour, toast, and I'm gonna hold my last note until I hear from the rest of you, because I don't want to give away what I think this
In the nose, I was sour cherry, sour aromatics, hazelnut, graham cracker. Very juicy texture, cherry pulp, cherry, some honey, some oxidized lemon, like lemon juice. Kind of more of an acetic acid, but tamed, and a rooibos tea finish.
I had a very weird experience with this coffee. Everything was up front and nothing was on the finish for me. Very intensely acidic up front, very quick fall off, citric and phosphoric acid primarily. It was very mild and sweet with kind of a short linger and very much effervesced off the tongue. Like it's not even there anymore. The aftertaste is super clean.
It's clean. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience to Rob. Maple syrup, molasses in the nose. I kind of got like a cedary straw note in the actual beverage itself. It had a kind of sourish acidity to it. I kind of got I picked up some toasted grains, even like a corniness. I thought. I feel like the body was a little bit thinner than I would have liked, but that's more preference. But I definitely got like a kind of overall kind of brownie, chocolate, maybe a little bit of like hazelnut praline kind of in the finish.
Yeah, my last note is decaf process flavor. Just a bit of that.
Okay, so
consistent
I also
decaf coffee.
I put carob down.
Ian also pointed that on.
I put decaf, and I'm gonna guess.
What you thought that fall off was?
Yeah, the
mostly
decaf.
because I wanted to know if it was like if that's where your head was at.
Yeah, with the fall off, I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
It was such a bizarre experience. I kept retasting it. Like,
Right.
what is wrong with my palate?
Right, that's what I thought
That
too.
makes a
Okay,
bit of
so
sense.
Nothing,
Maybe the
buddy.
previous
What
coffee.
decaf processing method?
I'm guessing it's a
Joe,
sugar
do you
cane
think this
Colombian.
was?
Yes,
I'm
I would
guessing
agree.
it's a sugar
I
cane.
also, from the notes that are given here, which were cocoa, almond, toffee, and lemon, which are very congruent to Frangelico and tart. I was also interested in, is this a sugarcane process decaf Colombia?
The acidity on it's wild.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So sharp,
Really weird.
so beautiful.
And I think you did a really good job at taming that acidity. I find working with this particular coffee, if you have a short development time, it can be the acidity can be quite soury and
Right,
off-putting.
Right.
And I find I have to stretch out my development time on this particular coffee much longer than I would normally on another coffee. That's usually how I handle it. I don't know how you handled it, but I thought it was tamed very nicely, that component that I always taste in sugarcane Colombia decafs.
It's very nice.
Clean, tasty.
Best decaf we've had all day.
Sounds bad. Also,
an evil
I'd
trick, though,
like
to
to
put
give you
decaf in
another
there.
hand for being the only person who has given us a decaf.
Yeah, way to go.
Variety, my
Yeah, it was
friends,
weird.
is the spice of life.
across that cup, but I didn't even think it through that part. Like, oh, maybe it's a decaf.
Lucky number 13, guys.
Number 13.
Alrighty.
Number 13, yeah.
Local favorite of ours, and it could be proximity to caffeine that does this.
Yeah. Well, also an incredibly well established in this town business. They've been around what, like 25 years or something?
Not as up coffee. Before that, I believe it was Flamenca.
So it started off as Upper Midwest Gourmet
Sure.
when they were a wholesaler. When they started roasting about 15 years ago, it was Flamenco Organic.
Okay.
About 5 years ago, they rebranded and united all their things under the Up kind of umbrella.
Yeah.
Cool.
And-
So 15 years was what we just heard.
Yeah. 15 years roasting, and Up isn't only a roaster. They're a cafe, a roastery, a wholesaler.
So go there and eat a full meal
Full meal.
Full meal with lots of coffee.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yes.
Everything that you could ever hope to taste. Honestly, Nepalese coffee with
Highly recommended.
crazy amounts of black
Yeah.
after notes.
Hedge my bets that way.
Delicious food. What I was going to say was barista training has been a huge portion of what Up has been known for, at least locally. Being able to bring in to a working cafe untrained baristas, put them to work, give them the equipment and the management that they need to actually know how to succeed at their establishment. That's not found around here.
Yeah.
So hats
that's
off to
pretty cool.
Up.
That's super valuable as a wholesaler to be able to offer that.
Yes.
And so many people don't.
The educational component will
yeah,
always
just
be
like
important.
a resource.
Yeah.
For your accounts. That's really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely. Good stuff.
Yeah, yes. It's kind of that.
Wow, look at that. Rob really just got in there. Put his whole face in the cup.
You joke about snorting grounds. I've accidentally snorted the crust once. It was awful. 200-degree water
That
stuff.
does sound really terrible. And then it just dribbled down into your mustache
Pretty
and onto
much.
your beard, and you melted onto the floor
Yeah, it's no good.
in shambles.
You want to be I was trying to cup with my eyes closed to like really focus in, and you got to keep one eye open minimum, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you no longer cup with your eyes closed.
Was anyone there to see it?
It was in front of the staff I was training, yeah, so good time. And then I did it again on me.
So staff, what not to do?
Exactly. As long as you're quick with the affirmation, it'll work.
At least you did it so others could enjoy it.
I'd like to get like a guitar tuner and see if their pitch changes dramatically throughout this entire.
Oh, I feel like it must, you know, based on viscosity of the different roasts that they have.
Lip extension,
Yes.
intake volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
could do a whole new company just on cupping dynamics. Cupping dynamics.
Yeah, I think that's,
Specially formed spoons.
I want to say that's a great idea, but I don't see the money in that, so.
No.
Sorry.
As long as they're standing up there, you know, I'm pretty much just wasting time.
Can you please stop wasting your time?
Yes.
Just kidding. Okay, so my notes on this are a little weird. I apologize. This is a different coffee. Savory. It had an aroma that was almost floral, and this is gonna sound weird, but it was like floral in like a male cologne kind of way, almost. Floral
weird?
spice to cinnamon.
Like amber.
Amber.
I've never smelled amber. Molasses, citric. Yeah, it was a floral aroma that I can't pin down. So perhaps.
I mean, I got that same thing, and I was like jumping between lime and sweet herb.
Yeah,
It's like
wild.
citrus and sweet herb.
Almond. It was
Potpourri.
a little muddled. Maybe perhaps because I didn't have the words to pin down to exactly what was going on. Very bright though. There was some very subtle paper characteristic that was a negative. And it was that savoriness as it cooled became more brothy. It kind of reminded me of pho in a way, like the spiciness of pho and the brothy
Beef knuckle?
savoriness of pho, and then you get that herbal aromatic. So
I kept looking at meaty brothy on the wheel and wanting to put it down, but I just like didn't want to make that statement.
Right.
But I kept looking at that.
Yeah.
There's a savoriness for sure. I would add to this, you know, there was roast notes, nutty like almond, but it wasn't very strong, so I just went with nutty. Straw-like, which I think lines up with the paper note. Mild acid, mild body, green tobacco leaf. I got an oxidized flavor, but I've been picking up oxidized flavor on just about every coffee. I think it has to do with the brewer or the decanters. But I did taste it more on this sample, and I don't know if that's coffee or the brewer environment.
Got a bit oxidized as well. Sweet caramel notes. I wrote down Ovaltine because I was getting that,
Okay.
like the chocolate with like the powdered milk and everything.
Yeah.
Malt, yeah. Mild to dark stone fruits, so probably like cooked plums. Caramel and a little bit of a nutty character, maybe reminiscent of hazelnut.
Yeah, in the nose I kind of got stewed fruit, cocoa, a little figginess going on. So definitely, like for me, fig is kind of like a savory fruit. You know, it's got a savory note to it. In the brew, I kind of got like another more savory sweet thing with tamarind. It was kind of tamarind, molasses, maybe a little bit of dark chocolate brownie. There was a tart puckeriness in there somewhere. I felt like the sweetness was pretty good though, and the acidity was clean. There was just a juicy dark fruit note that kind of like carried through the whole cup. I feel like it kind of opened up as it cooled a little bit, and it kind of finished for me a little bit odd compared to the beginning, and it was more like caramel sauce and Oreo cookie. It had like a dark, like the cookie on the Oreo, not the actual white filling, but it's like a dark chocolate kind of drying cocoa cookie.
Yeah, sounds good. I think as far as what I would do with roast on this, I think that this could stand to take on a little flavor from some roast. I don't know necessarily though, because the notes for me seemed a little disjointed. So
yeah.
When I'm thinking about flavor from roast, I'm thinking about like unifying the characteristics in this and kind of unfolding them a little bit more. Yeah, I feel like there's something is being cut off here.
Yeah. Develop the sugar a little more, something like
Yeah.
that. Yep, a little more body.
More body,
Maybe
more
tamper the
sweetness.
fruit down and get rid of it. Just go with the roast and the caramel and the nuts.
Perhaps underdeveloped, but there were roasty notes still.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
still roast.
I do know.
I think it might be partly the green. Like, I don't know what the green's
Did
like.
Up not just get a new roaster?
A year ago.
Okay. Dialing in a roast on a, like
One of our
semi.
newer coffees.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, what
fair.
coffee is it?
I'm curious the origin, because I think a lot of this may just be the origin we're tasting and some of the uniqueness
Exactly.
of that.
Yeah, and perhaps the processing method, because it's an interesting processing method.
Oh,
So this is
okay.
a coffee from Costa Rica. It's a red honey process.
Okay.
Interesting, yeah.
So
There's definitely a fruit
Definitely.
note throughout. Yeah.
interesting.
Sounds good. Yeah, sometimes honey processed coffees, we think about honey process in terms of evoking honey into the coffee, but really that's just a dressed up way of saying we left the slime on the on the coffee while we dried it.
And enough slime that it was red during drying.
Yeah, exactly. So that slime can sometimes taste like red peppers, or it has a savory like characteristic. If you've ever tasted a coffee cherry, it actually doesn't taste like a cherry. It tastes
Right.
more like a red bell pepper.
Right.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right,
sometimes,
right.
like with development time on honeys and naturals, especially the closer you get toward natural, I've found that like shorter development times actually work out a lot better. So it could actually be
Agreed.
that a shorter development time would bring out these fruits in a more profound way,
I agree.
as opposed to going the other direction.
Yeah,
So-
you're starting when you're working with a honey, pulp natural or natural. You're working with a bean that's already in a degraded state, as opposed to a washed where you're removing all of that mucilage and stuff from the parchment. So the cellular structure is a little bit more degraded to begin with. So I always treat those in the roaster with more delicacy in terms of my heat application, and usually always a shorter development time to get so I don't muddle that acidity and fruit and sweetness.
Yeah, in Portland, I'll never go below 2 minutes for my wash because it's just the way our water is, but I'll go minute and a half, minute and 45 on my naturals.
Yeah, I
bulk
usually do
naturals,
about
so.
a 30-second difference in mine too.
I agree 100%.
Cool.
Man, the way he's talking about slime being left on, it makes me, as a product of my Nickelodeon upbringing, think of coffee out like on beds with green slime all over it. I know that's not what's happening, but
Mucilage.
now I'm gonna think of that forever.
Red honey process, though, it would be, red slime.
Red slime.
Red slime. Was this another?
Our honey and Elsa
Very cool.
Right on.
always
Very cool.
has a-
What
has
and
this leguminous
what machine?
sweet pea.
What size is that?
I feel like it doesn't
Very cool.
cashews,
Who did
but
this
it's really
roast?
like-
I don't know if it was yesterday.
Okay.
Cool.
Very cool.
Right on.
Again, if you guys are in the area and have a chance to swing by up, I think they're closed already today.
Close at 5.
5?
Yeah, 5 on the weekend. Well, 5 all week.
Yeah. You guys are morning. Great breakfast. Fantastic pour overs. I don't know if it was just for me. I would imagine not, because I don't think the guy knew me by any means. But they opened a bag off the shelf when I wanted that Nepalese pour over. It's fantastic. Taking a bag out of inventory just because I want a few gram sample of that.
I've never had coffee from Nepal, so that's pretty cool.
It was very unique, extraordinarily unique.
Fascinating. So the next cup of coffee that they are over there slurping away is...
We may have had a cupping accident. Is everyone okay?
Sneeze, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Woo. So it's from Cup of Joy.
Ooh. I know that name. Are they with us here today?
No, they're not. Unfortunately, they are out of California, though. Did a little Googling earlier.
Ooh, nice.
I will say another one with really cool branding going on.
Sure.
Yeah. They had cool stickers that they sent us. I'm always a fan of stickers. I am.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Why are you laughing at me? I love stickers.
I've got no reason to laugh at stickers whatsoever. It's the increased amount of swag that's always appealing.
Fair.
I love free pens,
Yeah, there you go.
so
Yeah, the branded
just
pens.
keep sending pens
Nice.
in with your coffee. Nobody's ever sent pens with their coffee.
Hey, maybe they will now. Maybe you just started a thing.
I hope so. I hope so.
This is another one that we do have the notes for from the bag, so that's always exciting.
No processing method, though.
Yeah, which is, you know, an interesting choice. That's another thing that in bag design is, it's a fascinating subject, what you actually do decide to put on your bags.
Right.
As someone who worked for roasteries that have had wholesale accounts, it's always made sense for the places I've worked to include tasting notes and processing method and so much information, but it sort of seems like a lot of people probably don't care or know really what those things mean. And if you're only roasting for your shop, I like that some places put nothing but the origin or the blend name,
Sure.
and then you have to engage. You have to say, hey, so what's the deal with this Kenya that says Kenya?
Yeah, sure.
And then they have to know their stuff.
Well, and how many of out you, I can't even talk, goodness. How many of you out there market blends? Are cupping notes included on your blends? We got a no, we've got a yes, partially. So we're firmly in the middle of whether or not that's essential. Any shout outs as to why or why not?
I like what you said about engaging.
Yeah, having to talk
Engagement,
to
sure.
your distributor. That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I look at that as a pro. So when I walk into a shop that doesn't have tasting notes, it means that I'm going to go up and have a conversation about the coffee. And clearly I really like doing that. I also can see how some people aren't quite as crazy as I am, so they might not be as down to do that.
And Uncommon Grounds sells retail, is that correct? And so that probably differs quite a bit in presentation and marketing and processing than what you might be doing with getting your coffee on a shelf where it's a quick purchase and buy. We'll have to continue this after. Back to you.
So this one was a little, as you saw, we were conferring actually on this one. This one was a little tough, well, I'm gonna let Rob take this one first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the ground aromatics were really nice. Really nice floral tones, violet, lilac, rose, some lime, which is kind of a little bit more of an underdeveloped citrus for me, which isn't an unpleasant characteristic. But then in the brew, bready, metallic, vegetal, nice acidity, but with an ashy finish to it. We did note some tipping on the coffee, and when we broke it open, there was a little bit of a charred spot inside. And so I think the roast was quick enough or roasted in such a way that developed tipping, and so we're getting these nicer characteristics in addition to this ashy finish. And the other thing is I think the water may be different. I don't know exactly where in California this is from, but typically California water is a bit higher in terms of the ppm, so how many parts per million. And I think that though this could have tasted developed on water there where they're actually roasting on the water here, it just kind of came across as being a little bit underdeveloped. So I don't want to judge that unfairly because they're not roasting for our water here. Yeah.
Yeah, my notes were cereal, lemon lime, white sugar, just like plain, simple, sweet. Subtle fruit, such as apricot, dried apricot, mandarin orange, had a vegetative characteristic. For me, it was starchy. At Cafe Imports, we cup. So we are tasting super light roasts all the time. This tastes like a cupping roast that we would maybe have that would reveal any kind of defect. And I can tell that the green coffee here is of very high quality, but whatever happened to transpire for this water today, we couldn't get all of that stuff out of the coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the nose, I had wood spice, alfalfa, and chamomile with a little toast in there. The fruit element here was, to me, plum, but it was like a stewed, oxidized plum. It wasn't fully, it wasn't like a fresh fruit, It was kind of lacking a little bit in the fruit structure. getting maybe a little cinnamon on the mouth, a little drier texture. But yeah, that finish was a little biscuity, a little ashy, though the acidity was fairly pleasant, lemon-like acidity, just a little dry finish, a little ashy.
Yeah, I feel like or for me, the nose had a little bit. I didn't pick up a lot of the fruit notes. I picked up a little bit of the cocoa, kind of cinnamon in that nose. The wet was a little bit different. I kind of got like cookie dough and like kind of like burnt hazelnuts. I think that some of the tipping kind of came through for me, and like kind of it was hard for me to pick up some of the good qualities of the cup. I felt like the cup overall was just really thin, so it was kind of mild in the beginning. The start was really fast, and it just kind of went away. I picked up like a slight like pencil lead kind of note from it. The body was thin, the sweetness was mild. I kind of got like a roasted almond note kind of throughout. That was something that I liked. The finish was really fast too. There just wasn't much hanging out in my mouth that I could pick up on. It had a sharp roast note that kind of came throughout too, though, I thought.
Any guesses on origin?
Ethiopia.
Peru?
Let's go. Nice citrus. So something decently high grown.
It's definitely washed. Very washed note.
Guatemala.
There you go.
And we were given the notes dark chocolate, pear, and peanut butter cup.
Do you know where in Guatemala, out of curiosity? Region?
No,
Okay.
there was very little info on the actual bag.
Cool. As there should be. Most consumers are not like, oh,
Yeah.
Akotananga.
I only drink Jeff, so.
Exactly, right?
It takes like a year or two. Sometimes Guatemala comes off to me as well all the time. Usually way
Cool.
late.
This is going to be interesting.
I know.
We're down to the last two coffees.
And so earlier today, for those of you who have not been able to make it out to Minarosta, we're sorry, first of all. Second of all, you missed a really, really exciting morning because we roasted coffee.
A lot of coffee.
Yeah, a lot of coffee.
We went through 3.5 bags.
I don't know, you would be more suited to...
We finished off the 2 and then we opened a 3rd, so at least 3.
Cool.
That's amazing.
Right on.
Nice job, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
just went for it. So these last 2 are actually roasts from our roasting lab this morning. So this first one was roasted on a roaster from one of our sponsors, Bueller.
Bueller, making everything food needs. Bueller.
Derek was manning that machine this morning. I'm not sure who was in the driver's seat for this roast.
It was kind of a team effort. Honestly.
Okay, right on.
Yeah.
Team effort.
I just started it off, and I actually went over to the barrels probably after like 2 minutes, and then they just kind of took over.
Awesome. That's exciting.
It was exciting.
So would Derek's team potentially just raise your
it's
hands?
actually more Dan. Dan was kind of taking the lead on it all. He was kind
Awesome.
of But the Bueller team was here too, helping run the machine.
Yep.
Good stuff. Cool. So
Bueller
this
team
is a Huehue Tenango. This is a Guatemala, I believe, which I'm just going to give you that info because both these last coffees are the same one, roasted on 2 different machines, which is always fun, by 2 different roasters. So we will say that Dan was in the driver's seat for this one. And I'm really excited to hear about this. What we do know about the green on this one was that it was sort of mid-level green. It was in the mid-80s
Exactly.
points-wise.
Yeah.
So
Cafe Imports, another sponsor, graciously donated 2 bags of coffee for our open roasting session, which we ripped into and graciously took
Browned
advantage
up.
of. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
goodness, yeah.
those are all brown now.
I'm seeing multiple 5-pound bags of coffee with the Mill City logo on here. Make sure everybody takes some home, otherwise I will have to drink all of that.
It's not a problem.
It's not, but it will be. It will be. Well, mostly for you guys hanging out with me.
Alrighty, looks like the team is ready.
So this is going to sound like an excuse, but it's not. But after tasting a bunch of coffees that have been roasted a few days off a roast at least,
Right.
and then tasting a coffee right now that is right off a roast, it's very fresh. So I think a lot of the dynamic has not yet unfolded for this coffee. It's still pretty muted. So I'll use the term muted to start, but almond, coconut, citric acid, just plain sugar, very fresh, vibrant, raisin, kind of like dry white wine. Reminds me of dry Riesling. Delicate, not super explosive in any one way. I'd say this is a great roast on this coffee in general.
I think it's really going to open up as it degasses and rests. Therefore, the aromatics weren't too complex to me, but it's overall sweet, nougat, honey, graham cracker, butter. In the mouth, I got apple, honey, dried floral, dry lemon peel. Overall, a tart and dry finish in a pleasant way, like the Riesling or something, that kind of tart, dry.
That's a good one.
The dryness probably is going to soften up as it ages. I think a well-balanced roast development.
There's some tipping present though. So
Okay.
looking at the beans, there's tipping on a fair number of the decent beans, cracked open and it's burnt a little bit. So some of that may or may not go away. Sometimes you can't taste tipping. You just get on the table and it's like, oh, it looks tipped, but it tastes totally fine. So toasted bread's nutty, fresh and carbony, mild fruit tones, ashy with mild tipping.
Yeah, I think I agree with these guys. It was harder to perceive. There's just less notes on my sheet. So maybe the nose had a little bit of hibiscus and citrus. I even kind of think I picked up some peach. But then it was like, in the cup, it was more molasses, honey. There was a slight citrus rind kind of drying to it, a little bit of orange. But then it just became kind of like this tart, nutty thing that I felt like, it needs some rest. It would probably open up. There was a slight drying to it, maybe a slight green grape. I put not juicy. It wasn't juicy. It was like, it needs rest, it needs time. Maybe the roast was off a little bit, but it could open up, could be really good. But overall, I wrote good coffee because being the Guatemalan, being the roast level that it was at, it kind of just tasted like good coffee.
Right on. Kudos to you, Dan. That's awesome. On a totally unfamiliar roaster, it's always a challenge just being thrown in there. So that's pretty cool. And this last coffee, it is the last coffee, was roasted on a 20-kilo North Mill City roaster.
Was it really?
It was. By...
Did you really? That's awesome.
By Russell, right here in the audience from Perennial Coffee.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
We Minnesotans sure know how to roast. Am I right? That's right. As long as we are on our last coffee, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our fantastic sponsors who have helped make this possible. Mill City Roasters, of course, co-host sponsor, Cafe Imports, lending us Joe Morocco in the warehouse for last night. It was great to see many of you guys there. Bueller for bringing their techs out, helping us learn the machine, helping us show off the great aspects of the Bueller roaster. We will soon be transitioning to a Pacific Barista Series cupping event. Thanks to them for sponsoring that. We probably won't be live streaming that, as frankly I want to be involved, and I want Christian, who doesn't drink coffee, to be involved in our cupping event there as well. We're going to have a lot of fun, but it wouldn't be possible without the fantastic assistance of our sponsors. So thank you all again. Oh, and goodness, how could I ever forget that? I'm so sorry. Serena, you have been killing it.
Kudos to Serena, who has been back there brewing up all of these coffees.
The one-person brew
storm,
crew, yes.
Just furiously getting them all brewed beautifully.
One grinder, 2 Technivorms, and plenty of enthusiasm.
Yeah, making it happen.
Thank you so much. Roast Magazine, goodness, yeah. I'm scanning the audience for Nick, and media sponsor Roast Magazine for making us look amazing.
Like we know what we're doing.
Welcome to Daily Coffee News. Everything that goes in there looks great. Baratza for putting up prizes for this. My notes are incomplete. Thank you again for Serena. Keeping me sane.
Alrighty.
This one was very similar to the one we had before it.
I wonder why.
That's
It
so
was
weird.
Strange.
Also very fresh, like the one that we had before it.
It's weird.
So some of the similarities are going to be almond, the plain sugar that I had, that's same thing again, raisin, citrus. Things that are different, this one had a little bit more black tea to it. It had a mesquite-like note. It tasted a little bit more roast than the one before it, and in a subtly disjointed way. Cheer wine, if anybody's had cheer wine. It had like a cheer wine aroma to it in a positive way.
Sure.
Yeah. Roast, almond, Maplewood, muted. I thought this had more roast on it than the previous sample. The acidity seemed lower than the last sample. Body thin, carbolic tasting, a aftertaste of oatmeal.
Yeah, none of that dry Riesling on this one.
None of the fruit notes.
Full-blown tipping on it as well. So we actually have some full blowouts on the beans where there's a hole. Woody, nutty. I wrote down barbecue.
Yeah.
Some plum, nutty, and toasty as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and the aroma, I got more of a vanilla, honey, citrus than the other set. Very much the roasted almond kind of thing going on. The cup had it was hard to perceive the cup being so fresh. It was very nutty. Kind of had like a milky, buttery note in there that I kind of thought was nice. With the I think it was the green coffee was really solid there. There's a slight dryness to it. It was very much like a drying walnut kind of Guatemalan quality to the finish of the cup. But the finish was clean, but it definitely is going to need some roast, or need some rest, and it also had some roast on it. So, yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Fantastic.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you, esteemed judges, for doing this, volunteering your time to do this with us. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to you all for being our what would you call yourselves?
Strange in the corner with a camera on us. Yeah, I don't know.
Commentators. Yeah, let's call them MCs.
Yeah.
A peanut gallery?
That's the word. Yeah.
Roasted almond gallery.
There you go. That's more appropriate considering the allergy on this side of the room.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Peanut can be as I don't.
All right. Well, big gulps, huh?
We're going to confer for a moment and talk. Or just turn off your
Turn 'em off.
microphones, guys.
I'm going to take the batteries out of mine.
So who had the best slurp? I mean, on average. You might want to. Okay.
The batteries out of mine. Sorry, I did.
Let me make sure that I actually turned it off the first time.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So this one was a unanimous vote that we all just immediately knew. We didn't even really have to discuss it. We all just blurted it out who the winner was. And I think that the winner did a fantastic job of representing where the coffee came from, while also representing who they were going to sell the coffee to, representing a very dynamic cup that wasn't destroyed by roast, but definitely had personality in it. And the winner is Bootstrap Coffee.
I have dubbed the coffee the Grape Ape. So you can go ahead and change the name of it now.
I like it.
All right, thank you all so much.
For sure.